Hello and welcome to Conscious Living, another episode of the Spirit Plant Medicine program. My name is Marc Caron, and today I'm excited again to invite my co-host, friend, and partner in helping inspire some change in the world, Mr. Stephen Gray.
Hey, Mark. Hey, folks.
Hey, Stephen. What an exciting time of year as we get ready for the conference coming up in just over a month away, where, we're doing a lot of these great, I'd like to call them a webcast because they're not quite a podcast or anything, but, we get to, speak to our great presenters who are coming in to introduce them to the community and different people around the world. So thank you for being here as well, holding space with me as we go forward with our wonderful guests today.
You're welcome. I'm happy to do it. I always enjoy it, and especially with these two people.
Awesome. Well, let's pass it over to you to introduce our guests.
Okay. Well, the introductions are going to be brief. If people want to know more about them, uh, their bios are on the conference website, spiritplantmedicine.com. And even better, come to the conference because both Marco Sanchez and Acacia Lewis will be speaking at our conference again this year. And I say again because last year they were two of our most enthusiastically received and powerful speakers. And so I'm usually the one who decides on who comes to speak at the conference, and I just absolutely had to have these two people back. So I'm really happy to be talking or to be involved in this again with them. So, starting with Marco, as I say, these will be very brief intros. Marco has been studying Shipibo shamanism, healing, medicine work with ayahuasca, etc., for many years, working with maestros down in South America and so on, and also working with that medicine up here in Canada. As I say, I could say a lot more about him, but we'll leave it right there for now so that we can move on. Acacia Lewis, excuse me. Well, what can I say about Acacia? She's a bridge builder. She's, in my humble opinion, a mystic. She's a deep diver into psychonautic worlds. She's a master of a number of areas, psilocybin work, and her knowledge base is remarkable for a person her age, especially. And in fact, she's a teacher, and she has online courses, which maybe Acacia later on you can tell them how to connect to those if anyone wants to. And so she's always teaching people about a wide range of subject matter, all to do with spirituality. As I said, she's a bridge builder as well between, for example, Buddhism and psychedelics. And that's something that maybe you'll talk about at some point, Acacia, because I think it's a fascinating growing edge. So,
And thank you.
yeah. So welcome to both of you. And the format with some flexibility, we've done these before. We've called them psychedelic cafes. And normally we've had three or four guests or participants like you two. And so it's been a little more formally structured. In this case, we can be a little more flexible. But for the people watching and who may watch or listen later, it's going to go kind of like this. I'm going to ask a question which will be kind of open-ended, giving them free range to go wherever they want to go with it, and going to give them about 6 or 7 minutes each to answer that question. If they see me scratch my cheek, it might be a reminder, don't go on anymore. We want to keep moving. Yeah, like that. Yeah. So, and that'll be the first of three sections. The second section will open it up amongst the four of us, not yet the audience, the viewers. And so that'll be an opportunity for Marco to follow up with comments that he felt he missed in his first round, or questions he has for Acacia, or vice versa. Also a chance for Marc or I to ask questions of either one of you to pursue these issues in more detail. And that'll be another 15 minutes or so. And then we're going to go back to Acacia and Marco and ask them to do a little even shorter kind of 3-minute sum up of their thoughts on this general issue and anything that has come up during this session. And that will still leave us another 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the interest from the live audience, studio audience, for questions for Marco and or Acacia. And so let's just dive right into it. And here's the question. Uh, as I said, pretty open-ended, and it goes kind of like this. Um, in terms of what you know, what you've understood, what you've learned through your own practices and study, how do you see the role of these psychedelic sacraments, or whatever word or phrase you prefer to put on them, the powerful plant medicine substances like ayahuasca, psilocybin, peyote, and so on and so on? How do you see the role of these sacraments or medicines in the world at this particularly crucial moment of great change and upheaval? And as I say, include anything you want in that answer. You can talk about the promise of psychedelics, how you see the psychedelic renaissance unfolding or not, the pitfalls of understanding and practice, anything that comes to your mind about that topic. So let's be traditional here and let the woman go first. So, Acacia, would you answer that question in any way you want, please?
Oh, I was going to ask the expert on Shipibo cosmovism to go first.
Too late.
Um, okay, well, that's a big question. I was driving around in my car today, and I called one of my elders who holds a lot of sweat lodges, and we have a deep conversation about the state of affairs in the psychedelic community, particularly that, everyone seems to have a ceremony that they're being paid to host and run, and a class that they're doing. And there's a lot of people who are plastic shamans, and but there's a lot of people who are not. There are a lot of people who are standing behind the medicine and allowing it to guide their prayers forward, acting in a good way and being impactful members in our community. And that's a beautiful thing. And so we're seeing a lot of kind of it's getting kind of washed out with the laundry of this movement. A lot of what we don't want is being exposed. A lot of what we do want is being exposed, as far as where we want to go, how we want to help people, how we want to see the world be benefited through walking in a good way. And I want to emphasize ethics here, because the ethics that comes with, doesn't matter what tribe, doesn't matter what tradition, there's a foundation of service involved. And to be good role models and good ambassadors for the medicine, we have to highlight first uh, the respect and the reverence that our elders who carry these traditions bring. And so, to honor that in a good way, we ourselves have to model our behaviors towards others in a kind and compassionate way, while also holding space for the ignorance. I was thinking the other day, we talk about ego death, but we haven't really talked about ignorance. And ignorance is kind of a word in the context of Buddhism that refers to certain levels of fear and scarcity that lead to, like, pride, aggression, greed, etc. Ignorance and samsara being the obscuration of one's access to the true nature of the mind, being the Buddha. And so it's interesting to see, like, the context of ego in psychedelics, as us knowing that it's a challenge for all of us to overcome. Yet most of what is visible in the psychedelic community can be considered to be ego driven, i.e., very scarcity driven, in terms of the financial profiteering capitalistic side, and then also versus the joy seeking, experience seeking, exploration side. And so to be in the middle means that we have to come to the medicine in the right way, and understand that, yeah, there's a lot of sickness in the world, and so it's not a hindrance for us to call it even medicine. It is a technology as well, but I'm of the opinion that the way that psychedelics is going is starting to benefit so many people, because it's showing them that they were sleeping. They were content with a certain style of living their lives, or discontent with a certain style of living their lives. And the medicine wakes you up in such a way, or the psychedelic can help you to realize that you're dying at the same time. You're also going to die, and bring death into the human life, whereas in the West, we sometimes avoid this notion of death. And so in order to have life, we must first understand that we are going to die. And as a result, we have to learn to live our lives in a way that's fruitful and in service to our communities and others. And so it's one of those things that is very dear to my heart. The practice of working with psychedelics in a mindful and practical way, while also honoring the wisdom traditions that came before it, integrating those type of values into it. So I think to answer the question in totality, bringing value, is something that my heart is most aligned with.
Okay, thank you very much, Acacia. I'm sure there are more that we could follow up on that, but let's leave that for later. I have a couple of questions just from the short amount of things or small amount of things you said there. Let's turn to Marco. Marco, do you need me to repeat the question, or is it clear enough to you?
I would like to hear again.
Okay, I might be saying it in different words this time.
That's why I
Basically,
wanted.
yeah, basically, it's based on your own experience, your own knowledge, your own wisdom and insight. Uh, how do you see the role of these? I know you don't even like the word psychedelic, so I'll let you talk about that if you want. But whatever you want to call them, psychedelics, plant medicine, sacraments, whatever. These substances, you know what substances we're talking about, of course. How do you see their role in culture and society at this time in particular? And going forward, the pros and cons, the promises and the pitfalls, what people understand and don't understand or misunderstand, and anything at all, as I said, that you want to talk about regarding that general question.
Hmm. Wow. When I hear the question, it's just a million things rise into my head. But one of them is that I really believe that the stage that the planet is in a place of awakening, but at the same time, this awakening, it has the urge to be guided, right? So many people right now are calling awakening, which is not just the fact of expanding spiritually or seeing, having dreams, awakened dreams or visions or talking to spirits and things like that. People are actually realizing that there is healing that needs to be addressed in their lives. People are finding themselves the answer of depression and anxiety, bad behaviors. And so the awakening, it is happening. Just culturally, if you look at the world, how yoga classes are every time we do, mushrooms are traveling, ayahuasca is traveling, seems it's been a wave of awakening. And what I feel is psychedelics and plant medicine, it is just a guide for us to find a path, find a way out or a way in, a way of embracing, because I believe healing is not about them getting rid of anything. Healing is about embracing it with the best ability of love and compassion. So I feel like plants, one of the biggest ways is to help us remember that we are resourced and that no matter what happened to us and what is in us, we have the capacity to go through it. Like we wanted our parents to hold us when we need them. Now these plants, they can do that work for us so that we can learn how to parent our own selves. And when it comes to me, remember I talked in the conference about the certain anatomies that through the technology that I've been working, which is our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Also, I wanted to name the other three, which I found are really essential to make relevance of these other anatomies into this world. And it is the three anatomies that I learned the last few years with one of my partners that I was working with. And the first one is the cultural anatomy, and that's the anatomy of like we were raised and born into it, which it teaches how to go to point A to point B, and seems to be a really fast anatomy to follow. So we don't have enough time to slow down and look at the deeper part of ourselves, and then we end up in a cultural anatomy. So what I believe the plants and psychedelics and teachings, not just plants, like many other things, help us to go even a little bit more deepened, which is I call it or fluid anatomy, which is the anatomy of the fluidity of our bodies. So when we enter into the fluidity of our bodies, that wave of time slows us down, expands time for us to see ourselves in a different way and more space for us to change the way we think we are. And as we enter into our practices on these plants and these paths, we can dive into another anatomy which is deeper, which is called the cosmic anatomy, which is the anatomy which we are all made of and the vibration of the universe. But for us to even slow down and go deeper, we have to create more space and time to look reality through our fluid bodies and through the cosmic anatomy. And then I feel the psychedelics, it plays a huge impact because it helps us to go through those anatomies really powerfully and really well guided. Then we let go of the cultural of like what the world is asking for us, what we pretend to be, to actually what's happening in our bodies. How can we see that in a different way? And then through our bodies, how can we go deeper to see what's actually surrounding us? So to answer the question, psychedelics and plants help us to our awaken parts of our brains and our bodies to look time and space and time in a most spacious and elastic way so that we can look at these things.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So, well, I got one big question for Acacia, but I'm also wondering if either of you have questions for each other. But let me fire this one out in Acacia anyway, just in case we don't get back there. I introduced you as a bridge builder earlier on, and I know because we've talked about it a lot, you and I, that you are understanding that potential connection between Buddhist understanding, Buddhist practice, Buddhist history even, and the use or the skillful, proper use of psychedelics. So how would you describe what's going on with that and what could go on with that?
Okay, well, I'm just going to basically take myself off the chain that I put myself on to sound normal to people and just go into
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, what Marco was talking about is very resonant for me because the spiritual anatomy is intrinsic to Buddhism and Buddhist belief. Is Dharmakaya, Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, these bodies of celestial interdimensional intelligence that is all pervasive, that exists, that's a part of our experience here. It can only be accessed once you tap into your own physical spiritual anatomy and your own mental jungle gym, if you will. Depression, anxiety, all of these things are kind of stuck in the way in the mind that obscure this luminosity, that obscure this bliss body that exists, and it's sometimes experienced as a purge. And I think that when it comes to practicing working with psychedelics, what's important is that people learn how to do this work outside of medicine. And for me, that's what Buddhism does for me, is it gives you something sober every single day to work towards instead of waiting for the medicine to work for you. I like saying the medicine works for me because it's like this. If you do homework and your teacher sees that you are making effort, he'll help you. But if you're not making an effort to work outside of the medicine, then sometimes you get lost. But the medicine, if you put in effort, the medicine will meet you where you're at. And I really appreciate that about mushrooms in particular. Because if you take half of the work there, which is to learn to purify your mind, learn to discipline, learn how to sit with yourself and your emotions and your anxiety and such, but give yourself time to slow down. You can make progress in that space of contemplation as far as recognizing one's inner nature, and sometimes receiving teachings from an authorized teacher in a lineage in Buddhism is very helpful because they will give you a teaching called pointing out the nature of mind. And this teaching is very similar to experiences that I had on mushrooms and acacia, ayahuasca, and other plant medicines, where the place between where the thought arises and the thought is created becomes a space of unborn primordial experiencing. And this connects you outside of your own physical spirit, what you thought was your body and your mind, to a greater primordial experience, a greater body, as we use the word anatomy. And my teacher, Kalindi E, made this statement about infraparticle intelligence. And he made it very clear that in his high dose journeys, he was trying to go below the Planck length to meet these celestial generals, these beings like the Buddha, like Krishna, like these divine personalities that exist that are all pervasive, and identifying them with our own personality. And so for me, it's been a practice of purification work, becoming more aligned with the 8 right ways of expressing those divine characteristics, and purifying these kind of negative characteristics by becoming more aware of that there's nothing that we're trying to get rid of. We're just transmuting, like, all of the negative qualities that we have in Buddhism. Those negative qualities have wisdom inside of them. Those anger, lust, greed, hatred, etc., are reflections of supreme wisdom. And in Buddhism, it teaches that we are beginninglessly enlightened beings. And so if we are beginninglessly enlightened beings, then that means there's nothing to get rid of. There's just a perspective change, a shift to be had. And the plant medicine can help us make those shifts, I believe. I think it always has.
Beautiful. What do you have any questions for Marco yourself, Acacia? Not really. Do you, Marc, have a question for either of them?
Well, there's a lot there to unpack in many ways, and I heard a lot of different things. I have a couple of questions in particular, and it's something that we see. And I guess the first question is just a matter of curiosity, because I came across some folks again who were referring to Kalindi work and the high dose journeys and things of that nature. Maybe you can share a little bit more about, we hear a lot about the heroic dose of 5 to 7 grams and things of that nature, but maybe you can share with us, Acacia, a little bit more about these, deeper dives when people are doing, 20, 30, 40 grams of mushrooms, and why would you do that much, what you might get out of that, and the cautions, who should be doing that. I would imagine it's not for everyone, right? Because it's something that's starting to come up in conversation, and the thought of that for me kind of doesn't freak me out, but I just don't personally feel called to that deep of a dive.
Freaks me
let me
out.
be very clear. It freaks me out too. And it should, and it's one of those things where having reverence and respect is absolutely abjectly essential. And a lot of people coming from other plant medicines like peyote and ayahuasca look at mushroom use, look down upon it, actually. Like they think this is kind of some kind of a joke. Like the real medicine experience is had by higher ayahuasca experiences with maestros, and peyote experience with roadmen. And I appreciate and I respect both of those medicines, but I also respect the mushroom on an equally high level, as I do every other plant medicine, including iboga, partially because I've met it through this process of unraveling one's fear with it. Like I always had this fear of working with the mushroom, because I would say something about the mushroom and then my next mushroom trip would be about what I said about the mushroom. And it was always listening and watching, and I just wanted to know more about myself and why I was here and what I'm doing here, but also how to say thank you for the wisdom it gave me in the very beginning. And so I entered into a sort of relationship like a master and apprentice, and I remember when I first realized that I could ask it to teach me. But if I wanted it to teach me, I had to make myself a vessel to learn and to train myself to not just use my mind as a thought board anymore. I couldn't just blurt things out. I was having a conversation. And so slowly moving towards higher doses, I'd get to 5 and I'd get knocked back down to 2. I'd get to 7 and I'd be told to stop. for
Hmm.
6 months to a year. And I recommend highly listening and not rushing. Because if you rush, then the medicine's lessons that you already received that you're not integrating will not allow you to go further. You could take 20 grams and still be in the level 1 program, except you're inebriated and you're nauseous and you're not feeling very good. And so you're just like, I don't know what anyone would get out of that. I'm never doing that again. And that was your lesson, you know. But
Yeah.
if you take your time over like 10, 15 years, really, this would be my probably going on my 12th, 13th year of really taking this thing seriously. And all my entire adult life has been raised and shifted by the guidance of the ancestors and the bodhisattvas and the deities, whatever you would like to call it, but specifically by compassion itself and its personification. You know, in Buddhism we call Chenrezig energy, or Tioto. In my way, I would say it's a personality like Quetzalcoatl of energy and motion that transforms. And this transformative energy sitting with me while I'm slow enough to listen and giving me specific changes to make it my everyday life to get closer to my goal of understanding the lessons that it has for me. And so taking the high dose is now about timing for me. It used to be, I want to see what's going to happen. And that's how it is for a lot of people when they first start out. I want to see what happens when I do 12 grams, 15 grams. And the truth is, if you're very respectful, the visions that you receive will be linked directly to your activities in this life. So it's like putting your life under a microscope and fine tuning, fine chiseling, like a jade carver. I actually got into jade carving a couple years ago. And it's been a really good integration tool because no matter how good of a carver you are, there's going to be a little bit of dust. There's going to be a little obscuration. There might be a little roughness. And it shows you that the job is never, ever all the way done. You may call it done, but there's always some more polish. There's always some more time. There's always some more intense intention.
Oh, we lost her. Well, actually, this is a good chance for me to ask Marco about a kind of similar question, Marco. And I'll just put a little preamble in to put it in context. I've probably done about 30 or 40 ayahuasca sessions myself, either in the mestizo shamanist style or with the Santo Daime Church, and I've worked with you know, somewhat extensively with a number of other of these medicines as well. And in my experience, ayahuasca is really different. It doesn't seem to be in any way beholden to space and time constraints. Like sometimes, you know, it won't show up until like 4 hours after the person has taken it, or sometimes it won't show up at all. So can you say some things about how you see ayahuasca as a teacher?
Wow. How do I see, man, is the, just I can start with this. One of elders that we used to do addictions retreats with, helping people with addictions through with medicine and other practices, says, remember everybody that the medicine is not in the cup. The
It's not a
medicine
what?
the medicine is not in the cup you're
Oh,
drinking. So the
ah,
medicine is not in the medicine itself. The medicine is inside of us. And what it does, the medicine, I can talk about the medicine ayahuasca specifically because I work with a primordial, but I also have worked with psilocybin for many years because I'm from Mexico. But then I can talk in regards of the two, but specific ayahuasca is just a help us to see within the deeper layers that we aren't able to see, and help us to give us the tools to just become or absorb whatever needs to be seen so that we continue living in harmony in this life. And as Acacia say, the dosage for me, and you mentioned something, some people feel the medicine, some people don't. For me, the dosage, it is really depending of the person, and mostly the I go physically, because I also study a lot the body, is your own metabolism, how easily you can metabolize things. And also some people have learned to numb things in their lives. They are have been disconnected to the deeper layers of themselves and be driven by their minds. And sometimes these substances, people have a better how you call it, receptivity, like they need more, let's say that way. And it is, I have clients, for example, during the experiences, have come to me after taking a big dose of medicine, say, I don't feel anything. And I'm like, okay, I took a third of what you take, and I'm absolutely seeing that actually the medicine is just everywhere in your body. And I just put my hand in their heart, say, close your eyes, breathe, and slow down and feel your body.
Mm.
And as soon as I say that, they're like, oh my God, I'm totally feeling it. And I'm like, yes, this is right. The thing is, the brain is wired for us to keep understanding, I keep seeing reality through their senses of our brain. But as I was saying, this cultural anatomy has put us in a trap, right? It's being trapped us into like, we need to be successful, we need to have money, we need to have houses, we need to be powerful, we need to be seen. And then everything around us, you open your cell phone, publicity, Facebook, Instagram, you go to a grocery store, like this cultural life has helped us to put us in a box, right? And the box, it creates like numbing us, like like, so when people, the only thing they need to know is to be a reminder to slow down. And you can take 1 gram of psilocybin and you can access what 20 grams will give you if you have the capacity to listen. Remember, Steven, we're talking about it. That was one of the biggest gifts of ayahuasca has given to the whole world, is to learn how to connect, to close your eyes and go deep and let your body show you the way and connect to the plants. And that a lot of people, what I love about plant technology that I teach, because it's their work, Steven, is not just about ayahuasca and chacruna, is the work with hundreds of other different plants that we work with.
Mm-hmm.
And the dieting, which it comes part of the training that we do, because we have to diet, otherwise we don't learn. No matter if you're the son of the shaman in the village, you need to diet for able to learn, right? So the gifts, what I have give to me of the diet, it is taking something and closing my eyes and connecting with that and finding a relationship with that, so that I don't have to take it all the time and build a bridge with that vibration. And that's what dieting it is. I have diet mushrooms, for example, so I have actually worked with them and they become my ally in ayahuasca ceremonies as well. I have also transformed my relationship with marijuana. I have the relationship with a cedar tree, with an oak tree, with all the medicines. What the ayahuascas have taught me, it is you can build a relationship with whatever you want, and you don't have to take that to make that connection. That can live within yourself. So you just close your eyes and then it is there. So building bridges is with things, for example, not just with plants, with forgiveness, with love, with kindness. So you close your eyes and the medicine can show you, because the medicine can be terrifying as well. Ayahuasca is a master as well. People can experience extremely fear, and it's a common thing, because the fear of death, that's one of our deepest wounds that we have. But as it's showing you the fear, also give you the opportunity to see fear in a different way. Actually, you can actually feel love. And in the way, remember, a medicine is an amplifier. You can feel love in the highest ways, but also you can feel fear in the lowest ways. And actually, it's okay to feel the lower vibrations in medicine, because that teaches us how to see it in a different perspective. Not from a point of, I want to get rid of this. I don't want the fear. I don't want the anxiety. I don't want this abuse that happened to me. It's about, okay, it is here. Turn towards it, bring it in, and transform it from within yourself.
Oh, beautiful.
So that's what I feel like the medicine is giving us a way, and not just with ayahuasca, as Acacia was saying. I really just, and I will get back that to you, Acacia, is I have a massive respect for psilocybin. I think it's an incredible, amazing tool. Again, so some cultural people say, ayahuasca is much stronger, psilocybin, iboga, or things like that. I believe that's, and I have done in my own work with it. For the ancestor, it comes from psilocybin is an incredible teacher as well. But some people just are looking for the strongest for the thing, and then it's just about just slowing down. And that's what I think answer the question.
Mhm.
What's the can?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. You've both been emphasizing this notion of slowing down, which I can really resonate with. Hey, Marco, I'd like to ask you a follow-up question, if I may. Um,
Yeah.
at the beginning, in her first little monologue, Acacia mentioned that there's good work and not good work going on in this field. And she used the term plastic shamans. So rather than focus on the negative, the plastic shamans, from a positive point of view, what would you say, and I'll give another preamble on this one too, what would you say are the kind of requirements for being a good ayahuasca ceremonial leader or ayahuasquero? And the preamble or context part of it is that I have seen incredible effects from the icaros that shamans or ayahuasqueros have sung in my presence. It has changed, these songs have changed my experience dramatically. And I think the Mapacho cigarettes have also had that kind of influence. I know that tobacco is sometimes considered like the master of the master plants in some parts of South America. So I guess what I'm asking is, what are the components required to be a good or proper, and as Acacia earlier indicated, ethical ayahuasquero or ceremony leader?
Wow, that's like, thanks for asking that. Actually, Steven, I gonna go deeper on that in the conference, and when we are next month is in the first, and I'm speaking at the last. So I gonna talk a lot about this, and I was telling you it is gonna be challenging because I gonna be really honest, but also wanna give a lot of uh, ways that people are interested in learning the proper way they can do it, right? So answering the question of the plastic shamans, first of all, uh, and I'm gonna talk about this in the conference. I just gonna open up with the question: what actually the word of shaman means for this Western culture? Because where I come from in all South Americas, where all the plant medicines come that I've been learning, we don't use that word for a practitioner. We call curanderos, which means healers. We are doctors, right? So first of all, in the path that I work, and also is being done with psilocybin in Mexico, with peyote, with ayahuasca, with iboga, it is hard because it's a little bit of a gray area. It's not like you become a surgeon, you become I don't know, a spinal surgeon or stomach surgeon, where you go to university, you get tested, you have books, and then you get tested. You go, okay, if you don't pass your exam, you're done. You don't go to the next, right? And this world of plant medicine is great because we don't have that. And then it can elude and can create delusions, which are part of the interpretation of our visions, depending of your traumas, or giving the delusion to someone that I'm ready to serve the medicine, right? And it can happen. I have seen people that I have helped, they come from other people's ceremonies, they are completely messed up because they weren't taken care properly. And there's not a lot because the medicine does its own work on her own. She has some magic, and that's why it works for the plastic shamans, because the medicine does work on you regardless of who you are drinking it with, right? So, in the tradition of Shipibo Cosmovision is you need to be well trained. And how do you do that? And that's based of years of training. My teacher tell me, Marco, for you to just be able to serve medicine, you need to diet for 7 years.
Wow.
And that means be in isolation for long periods of time, 3 to 4 to 6 to 8, 9 months, without computers, no instruments, no nothing, sitting in the middle of nowhere to just purging your own self. So
Beautiful.
I cannot talk about my journey on that because it was uplifting to a level that I will never be able to grab words for it. But it's about the training. Now, the problem is, and I've been finding because I try to help people, right? Being at the right side of the plastic shamans is I was really judgmental about this. I was really like, you are not trained, you should not be doing that, who you are, you're young, your ego. And I was finding myself like, I was feeling toxic, to be honest, in myself. Like, oh, then I changed my perspective. Like, well, these people, they're gonna do it no matter what. First of all, they don't listen. Why they will
Yeah.
listen to me? But how can I turn it? I can help them. Instead of judging them, you are doing it wrong. Say, hey, you're doing it, but you can do it better. And find the languaging and finding the support for them to get the right awareness and the right teachers because they're gonna do it no matter what. Because you can buy ayahuasca online. They can buy psilocybin everywhere, you know? They're gonna do it no matter what. And then it's how can we help these people? It's like, do I have to open a school in Peru and be open and tell people to teach them properly? Or doing these conferences? Because what I did last time about in the conference, I told them last year is all about plant technology and showing the tools that we use. So it is about trying to help these people to come into the right place because the problem is that the teachers that they have, to be honest, they are not the best teachers because they are not telling them to shut up or don't tell him to
Yeah,
stop.
right.
You
Yeah.
know, a good elder, this is a teaching I just learned from a friend, says, Marco, with someone comes, a young folk, mostly white man, comes to us and says, I want you to teach me. They say no the first time.
Mhm.
And then the guy goes. And then if he comes back and says, can you teach me again? They say no.
Mm.
And he goes. If the guy has the balls and the ego to shut down and comes back and asks for a third time, they say, we'll consider it. And if that person stays there for longer, they say, we'll teach you. Right? So the problem is we don't have proper elders, we don't have teachers. The problem of money is being an issue because you go to Peru and anybody will say, I will teach you because they're charging money for it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so it's not really the authenticity of like really learning from a teacher because it's not there anymore. It's being corrupted by money. So we
Yeah.
just need really good elders that literally just slap us in the face, say, okay, grandchild, slow down. This is
Yeah.
not
Hey,
this way. We need good teachers.
yeah, that was great. I'd like to give, I'm sure Acacia, some stuff has come up in your mind while you're listening to that. Do you want to follow up or add into that? You're muted again.
Yes, yeah, thank you. That was great. Yeah. Um, I would like to say actually we have plenty of good teachers. It's just the medicine community is not always willing to like humble themselves in a way and go to traditional other spiritual traditional teachers and learn from them when they have to give up all of their abstinence and have fast for maybe 16 to 50 days silent meditation every single year to get teachings. That's what I invite you to our monastery. I invite you to come and do silent fasting retreat for 50 days straight. Read 300 pages of sadhana every day to purify your negative emotions and karma, you know, and this is teaching, you know, and the teacher definitely told me, shut up, you know, in the most kind way, you know, you can possibly imagine, you know, because this is a serious path and it does require isolation. It does require giving up certain things and taking vows that you're not going to lie or steal. I mean, honestly, what I'm not seeing in the ayahuasca scene or in the mushroom scene is that people are getting really serious about their practice and giving up these sorts of behaviors that makes them toxic to begin with completely. If you're going to halfway give it up and take a diet and you tell the plant that you're going to stop doing these things and then you go and you do it, then you're kind of violating your agreement and destroying that bridge. You're destroying that samaya. And I think that there's a long history of context of agreements that are made inside of the spiritual medicine place. And you have to honor those agreements that you're making. between the teachings and yourself, and the plant and yourself, and the spirit and yourself, because the plants are not, to me, the highest source of intelligence. They were created, but the highest source exists inside the plant. And so when I tap inside the plant, the part of me that's bridging to the plant should be my love and compassion. It should not be my ego trying to gain something or trying to learn a little teaching from the plant. It should be out of love and compassion that I love this plant and I'm asking it, what can I do for it? And now it's teaching me by giving me a blessing. And I'm not going to parade that blessing around in such a way that is dishonorable. And so, personally speaking, there are plenty of teachers. It's just the language barrier between the people who have the wisdom and the people who are coming into this fold looking for the wisdom by getting shortcuts or trying to find it some other kind of way. Westerners, we have a bonus. We are a melting pot of hundreds of different cultures. And there are not just one culture in the Amazon rainforest that believe this way. There are cultures all over the world, from Africa to Asia to the Aztec, Mexica, Zapotec people who teach ethics and moral compassion, especially in regards to each other. And that's the ultimate basics. The ultimate basics is to go to someone who is willing to guide you in life, not just in medicine. Because a lot of these people have never had male role models or female role models that they can even relate to on a basic level, let alone know what to look for in a qualified teacher. Somebody who spent their whole life, maybe 40 years, 30 plus years, practicing and prayer and in meditation and in solitude. Even the people who are saying that's not a qualified teacher are honestly, to their teachers, unqualified. And so it means that we have to be it. We have to represent it by actually not just saying, oh, well, this is how you do it. This is how I'm going to teach you. If compassion is not where we are leading from, to say, okay, they're doing it wrong and creating harm, but not to tell them that they're doing wrong, but to hold space for them to do right, means that we ourselves have to be, like Marco was saying, completely purged of our hatred, of our greed, of our stupidity that makes us think that that person is somehow less than us because of their way or their walk is damaging to others. It's a reflection, and it's something that's karmic. It's a dependent arising. In Buddhism, if you see someone who is your enemy, who is doing something, like there's this guy here in the church doing all sorts of crazy stuff here in Oakland. This is someone who has good practice for tolerance for me. You know, I need to practice tolerance in order to be a good medicine person. I need to practice tolerance in order to teach compassion or even to talk about bodhicitta. And this lack of tolerance is intrinsic and fundamental in the psychedelic community, and it's not the place to lead wisdom from. If you're leading with any sort of ignorance, you're leading with ego. And so first, we have to become aware of what is fear, what is happiness, what are these human emotions that are negative, and learn the wisdom inside of them that we are trying to walk towards. What are we trying to walk towards together, and teach that fundamental basis? And then when medicine comes, like Marco was saying, medicine is not in the cup. The medicine is the divine awareness. The medicine is that Nirmanakaya body, that cosmic anatomy, that interdimensional alchemy of divine quality that's inside of us, that gives us life, the breath of life, the energy that flows through us that we give thanks for. This is having a human experience. And as it's having a human experience, it's unraveling to get to know itself and showing us what creates harm for other sentient beings, what creates suffering for other sentient beings through our own experiences. And so if I'm seeing other people here who are moving in a way, I have to look through their darkness to see their light and say that I respect their compassionate nature that they already intrinsically have. And as a result, I will build a bridge directly to them, not to their darkness, not to their bad behavior, to their hearts, to their soul, to their light, and honor that, because I feel like that's the only way for us to move forward, you know?
That's great. Thanks a lot for that from both of you. You know, you've said, I think, a similar thing in different ways. But Mark, we've been in here almost an hour. Shall we open it up to some questions if anyone has a question?
We have been 50 minutes so far, so we're wrapping up to that spot. And I just want to thank you for what you've shared, both Marco and Acacia, because it answers a lot. And I've got a lot more questions just based on what you said. And I love that last part, the medicine is not in the cup. And I love, Acacia, what you were saying about a teacher to not just serve you medicine, but to, teach you and help you through life. And I think that's really stands to the importance of integration and how it's not just a one-off shot. I'm going to ceremony and then I'm going back to my everyday life and doing the same old things all the time. And I think it's really important in choosing, any person you're going to do any work with, that there is that after work, even the pre-work that leads to that, which is really, really so important. And I just really thank you for those nuggets that, I like the snapshots myself because it's that small thing that you can really bite into. So thank you so much for that. And yes, we do have some studio audience here in our Zoom room. And this is the unique thing that we like to do at the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference, as well as we like to bring in the conference into Zoom so it can be interactive. The audience gets to be on the wall in the conference, and the speakers and presenters get to see them. And you have an opportunity to interact with Q&A as well as we, do some special guests and things throughout the weekend. So if we do have anyone in our Zoom audience today, where I see we do have, some folks, if you would like to ask some questions of Acacia and Marco, if you would like to turn on your camera and maybe raise your hand, then we're happy to bring you into the program. You can ask your question and get it answered. And if not, that's okay. You're welcome to, and you're welcome to not. It's totally up to each individual. So if anybody would like to ask some questions, that would be great.
And if you're not familiar with it, folks, the reactions button at the bottom of your Zoom screen has a drop-up menu where it says raise your hand, and you can click on that and it'll show your hand, and Mark
Or
can
turn
acknowledge you.
your camera on, and that'll be a great indication because everybody's got their camera
Right, you can just
right now.
wave wildly with your camera on too. Yeah.
But we don't see that at this point. So I'm going
No?
to ask a
Oh.
question. I have a question. And this is something that I see and people have talked to me about in the past. And I really want to get more clarity around it because I know that it happens. And, we've got such a mental health crisis in the world today. And there's a lot of people who are, on antidepressants and different mood regulating pharmaceuticals who are interested in doing the work. And, from my understanding and experience, that these medicines do have a benefit for some of these, let's call them ailments or conditions. What would you say is the important thing to consider, that if you are in that area of being, using medication for something like that, and then the, effects or considerations and things you need to keep in mind in regards to using any of these plant medicines? Does that make sense?
Marco, you want to take a shot at that one?
Nice.
Yeah, Mark, this is really incredible. And I will bring you something that will be really beneficial for these people as a feedback. There is something I've been learning lately, which it calls parts work, and it's called IFS work, internal family systems, that I've been using a lot for integration and my own personal work, to be honest. And is that in this society, and again, I come back to the cultural, we have these labels for people. They say these people have attention deficit disorder, these people have bipolar disorder, these people have this, and these people have depression and all these. These are really great labels. What do we see in the work that I've been doing are parts of ourselves frozen in time they just need help with, right? So when people are taking antidepressives, and most time, maybe in psilocybin is different because I have worked with it, and psilocybin is a little bit more, in my perspective, more be easier to help these people because it's not a lot of contraindication unless you're taking really heavy medication. But with ayahuasca and stuff, we need to have, depending on what kind of medication you're taking, how long you have to come off for you to have this experience, right? And that's the work I've been doing lately. Is my work is not just giving people medicine. It is uh, training and helping people to prepare themselves with the right questions, with the right areas, with the right direction to come and preparing themselves to come to ceremony. And then the work happens in ceremony, and how do we help them to integrate in the daily life, right? So people taking antidepressives, antipsychotics, yeah, it is contraindicated, a lot of them with the medicine, but it's really it's easy to win them off, and the medicine helps. I mean, for example, I have had hundreds of clients that have come with antidepressives, and then 99% of the people have worked with the medicine with us and other friends also facilitate. They have never go back to taking antidepressives or antipsychotics and things like that. But the amount of work that needs to be offered to arrive to that level is not just a work of a weekend retreat. It's not just a work of one night. You come for one night and you're gonna be all cured. It's a whole process of preparing, treating the person, because you know what, there's these substances that are taking these medicines, they're just numbing what's actually in, where the plants and the opposite actually they amplify that so you can see it and confirm those parts of yourself, right? But I mean, the medicine is incredible for the microdosing, for example, is another one I will recommend for instead of taking medications. Microdosing, like psilocybin, is extremely good for microdosing for depression and the anxiety and things like that. Also, we have plans that we use for microdosing to help people to actually regulate their nervous systems and they come back into more stability way.
Hmm. So Marco, just a little correction, or not correction, but a qualifier here about getting off of SSRIs. While I'm no authority, I've known a number of people who have dealt with this, and some people who have are professed sort of experts on telling people how to do that. It has to be done extremely carefully and very slowly, as I understand. You can't just wean yourself off SSRIs in 3 weeks or something. You really have to take your time. My niece took a year to slowly go down like 10% at a time, monitoring how she felt very carefully.
Hmm. Yes, yes, correct. So, for example, to be honest, people with heavy medication as those ones, we don't ourselves speak the word that we do. We recommend to don't do it at least 4 months before any of the experience, and we guide them to a protocol that we have for helping them in those 4 months. Because you're taking the SSRIs, but also we have another natural medicines to help to regulate, and you don't take them all at once, right? You take them in small dosages and slowly start weaning off, and you start replacing it with therapy, and
Uh-oh, you just
that
froze.
devastating. Yeah, really bad. People can get killed themselves. People can just be really, it is really strong. So we have a really specific protocol for that, that we learn by mistakes, honestly, because we didn't know about it, but the years taught us how to do it properly, and we have a protocol how to do it. Yeah.
Do you remember Mark's question, Acacia? Do you want
It
to
was
repeat it, Mark?
it was just within the mental health crisis, a lot of people on different pharmaceuticals for their situations, and the desire when you hear about the healing properties and the benefits of the plant medicines, the if there was some advice or things you would have, share for people to consider if they want to do the work with the medicine, because I know we've seen it many times. And the Dose movie, the first Dose was a great example where people lie about what they're on because they're so desperate to want to do this medicine and get the cure. so they're deceiving. And then, what are the dangers, implications, and the suggestions you would recommend for people who may be in that position, who are watching this at any time, and what they can do?
Okay, well, do I got like 5 minutes?
I guess you want to say a few things about that.
I
Go
do, I
for it.
do, I really do.
Go for it.
Okay, so first of all, the allopathic way of talking about these medicines is not going to work in the long term. Saying that's for anxiety and depression is not going to work in the long term because every person is a case by case situation. Each person has a unique brain chemistry. And we need to focus, kind of as Marco was a little bit alluding to, their brain chemistry for months before they lead up to really working on having a big peak ceremony. And I honestly don't feel like psilocybin is well equipped as a molecule to work with anxiety and depression. I see it creating repetitive structures where, just like with ketamine therapy, you're becoming ketamine dependent. I know hundreds of people who have become microdosing dependent because the tolerance doesn't build fast enough. And after you take it and you just start it on a weekly basis, by the second time that you take it a day in a row, the effects are not as pronounced, and therefore you can get into a pattern of repetitive taking it. They're taking their lion's mane stomach stack. I know people who have taken it every day. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're not going to get very much out of it if you just do this every day. And they're like, well, I thought that I was supposed to. Or I'm taking on a weekly basis, and they're not even connecting with the medicine itself. They're just going on a repetitive basis and then hyper focusing on whatever they're doing in life that may be distracting or in the opposite direction. They're scrolling through Facebook microdosing. I can't stand this. They're on KitchenAid website looking at blenders microdosing. They're having arguments with people microdosing, and they're building neural pathways that are just kind of junk, and filling your mind with more junk isn't going to help you let go of the junk that made you sick. And so it's a matter of respecting, if you're going to microdose, creating space and making the microdose. Like Marco was saying, you could take a gram of mushrooms and have a 20-gram experience. If we mean by letting go, yes. But unless you've done 20 grams, then you don't know what a 20-gram experience is. But there's no point to doing a 20-gram experience if you can't do 250 milligrams and get something out of it. 20 milligrams is something. For me, I'll touch some mushroom powder. That's a microdose for me. And people say, well, how is that possible? It didn't go into your bloodstream, did it? No, I've played enough with ayahuasca with my thumbs to know that it goes into my bloodstream. If I pinch a little bit of mushroom powder between my thumb and my forefinger and I sit in meditation for an hour, I'm gone because the frequency of the medicine is inside of me. I have built a relationship with it. And so it's essential that if you're going to microdose, that you do just that. You microdose with the intention of building a relationship with it rather than using it as a pharmaceutical type of depression aid or anxiety aid. And then also the biggest important aspect is to start journaling about what happens when you're feeling sick, when you're feeling anxious, what you're doing when you feel depressed, because you cannot run from your life. You need to be able to talk to people. You got to stop building walls between you and other people. Get therapy. There needs to be someone for you to talk this stuff out with as you're making realizations. And for you to nourish your mind after using SSRIs for a really long time, you're going to need dopamine. You're going to need GABA. You're going to need choline. You're going to need all of the building blocks to your mind being able to relax and actually function as a normal, quote unquote, whatever that means, mind that's relaxed can function. And for a lot of people who have been through trauma, they push their suffering down. Their suffering becomes cancer. Their suffering becomes toxic emotional behavior, narcissism. When they push their emotion down, then the idea of even touching that suffering a little bit becomes gross. It becomes disgusting. It makes them nauseous. I've seen a lot of people dry heave for days, just releasing. You have to learn that even if you push it down, it doesn't go away. You have to be able to let it go in slow spurts, gently, without shaking up the Coca-Cola bottle and exploding over everyone and everything. And I think that a lot of people take 5 grams and they just feel shaken up and explosive and overwhelmed by the amount of things that they've pushed out of their minds, and they don't really want to deal with them all. And so they just go through this ego death, but there's no integration in the experience. There should be integration. If you're microdosing, you can actively start to integrate this emotional pain and suffering and trauma if you're willing to embrace it, if you're willing to hold it and hold space for it to become something different than just pain and suffering, or even upset. Like if someone upsets me and I microdose, I use the connection that I have with the wisdom of the medicine and the compassion that's inside of me that is medicine. And I look at it in such a way that I allow the truth to be revealed to me by compassion of what that person's going through. If they're suffering, if they're going through something, I don't make it about me anymore. I don't hold on to it anymore as something that they did as a victim. I let that stuff go. And a lot of people feel like they've been taken advantage of, maybe by others, or their family members are very toxic. And so they have all these stories. And these stories grow legs and walk around inside of them as sickness and disease, even sprout faces. The face that they made of disgust becomes the thing that you see in your first trip, and you're wondering, who are you? What are you doing here? And it's like, I'm you. You're like, you're me? But you look ugly and deformed and I don't like you. Well, that's how you're behaving. And you have to let that go and purify that created construct of self that was a wounded construct that stands in between you and the healed version of yourself that's always existed. And so it's a process of holding space for forgiveness, holding space for compassion, allowing it to be transformed by compassion. It's not going to get transformed by your ego. It's not going to get transformed by just the medicine. It gets transformed by compassion itself, the ability to see suffering in others and to not think about oneself as something that's above someone else or above some kind of thing. We all go through pain and suffering, and it's for us to develop that sense of compassion to change it into something else. And I feel like that transmutative energy, that alchemy energy, is not something that's obvious when we microdose. We have to actually embody an action, and that activity requires contemplation. And I think that's what happens when you slow down. If you slow down and you look at it with your heart rather than with your mind, then you open that compassion up to do it, to do the work with you. And you're able to cry, you're able to release, and you're held by something inside of you that's been there since before you were born, that's going to be there even after you die. And that primordial sense of compassion that arises from you closing your eyes and visualizing is profound.
Well, on that cheery note, you've given people some good guidance and a very interesting perspective, Acacia, and you both have. Marc, I'm beginning to wonder if maybe this is a good time to start bringing things to a nice closing.
It's a beautiful segue. Thank you so much for those great responses. I think it's really something that, we need to talk about a little bit more and people need to be aware of. So thank you for that. Marco and Acacia, it's just a pleasure to always have you and share space with you as we did at the Unicorn Music Festival in August. It was a nice way to convene in a different way. So I'm grateful for that. And that being said, a great opportunity to come and meet Marco and Acacia in person here in Vancouver at the end of November, 1st to 3rd out at UBC at the beautiful Great Hall, where we'll be doing 3 days of wonderful speakers and presenters that Stephen has carefully curated himself, is one of the things he does very well. So It's an opportunity to come and learn more, meet them in person, and just really meet some community and like-minded people. So we invite you, if you're watching this today, excuse me, to join us in Vancouver in person. And if that doesn't work for you, we have a really great offer for, we have a live stream, which is a lower cost. If you just want to watch it on a website, you can do that. And what we encourage you to do is join us in our Zoom environment for a virtual interactive hybrid event where you can connect with like-minded people from around the world. You can be engaged in Q&A. We have a whole bunch of special goodies that we'd like to include in that as a gift for taking a plunge into a virtual world that's a little bit different. So, of course, spiritplantmedicine.com, you can get all the details there. And again, I want to thank my partner in production, Mr. Michael Kraus, who's on the back end here, doing the wonderful produced Zoom is what we like to call it, which gives it a little bit more polish to a regular stream Zoom meeting. So Michael, thank you so much always for your support. It's always appreciated. And if there's anything else, any last words, Steve and Marco Acacia, now is the time as we wrap up another wonderful, inspirational conversation.
Well, I just would like to say thanks again to Acacia and Marco for sharing your obviously thoroughly well-earned and grounded insights into how to work with these medicines and how to understand them and so on and so on. And just to kind of confirm or add on to what you're saying, Mark, about the conference, I would just like to say that we're putting out the call from the heart, really. We're not running a business here. We're running a not-for-profit educational initiative with a vision and a prayer behind it, quite honestly. I hope that doesn't sound pretentious to anyone, but it's true. It's a vision and a prayer for the healing of individuals and the collective, and especially at this time on the planet, everyone who's capable of healing, going through the healing journey, waking up and participating in the change that needs to happen on this planet for the generations to come is important at this time. If you look at if any of you watched or will watch this wonderful interview we did with Chris Bache a couple of days ago, he stressed that at this time, there's something about the time that we're in right now that has created a condition where the thoughts and actions of every single person make a difference to the larger field. It's really important right now. And our conference is quite honestly a fantastic empowerment hub for people to come together to help support and strengthen each other toward their own and the healing of the world. So please do come.
Well, hey, and as just an aside, because we're not about being capitalist or anything like that, but we always want it to be affordable. So right now we got a 25% discount for anybody who wants to join us online or in person. And if you want to join us in person, don't tell Steve, and it's a secret. SPMC 241. Buy 2 tickets, get your second one free. Works out to 50% because we want you to share. If you're inspired about what we're doing here and you want to learn more, we do not want money or costs to be a barrier. So bring a friend, save even more, and come and join us live in person. We'd love to see you there. Thanks, Acacia.
Hey, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, my
I got
pleasure.
one thing.
Yep.
October plant medicine class. I'm going to Africa. I'm going to Ghana for a couple of weeks to go work with the chacruna that has been grown in Africa and nearby the world's largest iboga farm. So I'm getting a chance of a lifetime to get to meet medicine people there who have been working with the war chiefs and kings and queens of Ghana. And so Akua Pem is the name of the retreat. I'll be going there. There's a discount code if you are interested in going there. My friend from London, Akua the dressmaker, Akua Ofosuhine. And I'll be teaching African plant medicine from there and embodying the ethics of Ifa and Ubuntu inside of the conversation of ethnobotany, that is African ethnobotany, and its relationship with other traditions in other countries like Asia and Oaxaca, Mexico, which is places that I love to study the philosophy in regards to plant medicine use. So if you want to take that class, you get 25% off too. And so I'll match the discounts that they're going to give, and I'll send the link to Mark.
And I'll get it out in the email. And did you say Ubuntu?
Yes.
I am, because we are. I
Yes.
love it. Part of the movement, we had a chance of meeting Pato Baton and Antoinette. If you know the two of them, Pato's a great musician, as Antoinette there, and him and his wife. The two of them have been traveling, and they were here in Vancouver showing their documentary about the work that they're doing to bring people together on Ubuntu. So you don't hear it every day, so you perk my ears even more. So thank you for that. Acacia, send me that information and I will get it out on all our social platforms and everything else we got going out there, and on an email sharing the replay of this conversation.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone. And if there's
Thank
anything
you.
else, Mark, anything else,
Thank you,
Stephen?
Marco.
No, I'm
Well,
just really grateful to be here with all of you. Thank you so much for the time and the effort and the spirit of sharing is something I really value for Mark and Steven. You guys have a beautiful spirit of expanding and sharing, and I'm just really grateful to meet the two of you and Acacia, obviously. Can't wait to see you again and work with all of you. I'm so excited. Thank you.
it's going to be a great weekend. So thank you,
Big
Yep.
everyone, for
hugs.
tuning in for this episode of Spear Plant Medicine on Conscious Living. My name is Marc Caron, joined by my friend, co-host, and master of all sorts of things, Mr. Stephen Gray. And a big thank you to our guests, Acacia Lewis and Marco Sanchez. Until next time, everyone, take care of each other.
See y'all.
See ya.